The Allen Line Company thanks all the hard-working drivers who are moving goods across the country. We can't do it without you.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
Is FMCSA going to make it easier, or maybe even too easy, to get a CDL? Or is the agency simply making the process more efficient? FMCSA recently put out a proposal that they said would streamline the process, but there are concerns. I'll discuss what those concerns are and more with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. A woman who operates one of the biggest pieces of equipment in the world is sharing her story of overcoming life's challenges. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford speaks with her about finding success in the trucking industry. And finally, Marty Ellis is set up at one of California's busier truck stops, and he's hearing from drivers who are worried about other drivers. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is lending its support to a proposed rule that would crack down on predatory towing. Last year, the Federal Trade Commission proposed a ban that would prohibit businesses from charging hidden and bogus junk fees by requiring them to include all mandatory fees when quoting a price. FMCSA believes that predatory towing fee practices fall within the purview of FTC's proposed rule. The agency said predatory towing junk fee practices significantly increase costs for commercial motor vehicle owners and operators. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg wrote that a truck driver cannot earn a living when their vehicle is towed, leaving them vulnerable to predatory junk fees from towing companies. FMCSA Acting Deputy Administrator Sue Lawless added it's time to end excessive rates, surcharges, and other unfair fees associated with predatory towing, which is detrimental to the overall health of the trucking industry. In a statement, OOIDA Director of State Government Affairs Doug Morris wrote that the association agrees with FMCSA's stance and stands ready to work with them to draft legislation and regulations that could address these junk fees and exorbitant tow bills. Until such time, Morris said OOIDA will continue working with Congress and state legislators to address these issues in transportation bills or standalone legislation. The Secretary of Transportation held a meeting on Tuesday in response to ongoing attacks in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. In a news release, the U.S. DOT said the meeting included DOT officials and supply chain leaders who spoke about the potential challenges. That includes the potential effects on supply chains, businesses, and consumers. Transportation Secretary Buttigieg said the department is analyzing data and keeping a lookout for any potential bottlenecks. Houthi rebel attacks on commercial vessels have forced others to change their routes, increasing the amount of time it takes to reach their destinations. Shippers involved in Tuesday's meeting shared how they are responding to longer travel times around the Cape of Good Hope. West Coast ports said they are not seeing a surge in freight, and participants as a whole did not expect any bottlenecks to be as severe as they were during the COVID-19 pandemic. FMCSA has announced plans to launch a study on the prevalence and severity of sexual assault and sexual harassment experienced across the commercial motor vehicle industry. Before that, though, the agency wants feedback on how to go about designing and conducting the study. FMCSA said it's especially interested in finding ways to support women currently in trucking jobs and those seeking to become drivers. The results will be used to craft rules or measures that might be needed to improve driver safety and mitigate sexual assault and harassment throughout the industry. The comment period is now open and runs through April 11th. One of the trucking companies suspended in British Columbia after a number of crashes involving bridges is suing the province's Ministry of Transportation. In a court filing, Chohan Freight Forwarder said it has lost millions of dollars since authorities suspended the company's operations after 6 separate overpass crashes in just over 2 years. The company is also asking the courts to take up the suspension on behalf of its 63 drivers and affiliated owner-operators who are losing out on income. During a news conference on Wednesday on other matters, British Columbia Premier David Eby addressed the lawsuit and the recent crackdown on overpass strikes in his province.
British Columbians, especially in the Lower Mainland, have been astonished and frustrated by the number of overpass strikes. This is where a truck hits a bridge or an overpass on a highway. And one of the worst offenders has been this company, Chohan, and I understand they have hit 6 overpasses. The astonishing part is that the company thinks that they should be still able to operate, and they're going to court to challenge our prohibition on their operating until they figure out how high bridges are and how high their trucks are. My only hope is that on the way to court, they don't run into a bridge. I encourage them to take the bus or some other form of public transit on the way to the courthouse.
Jo-Ann Freight Forwarders, in its court filing, is asking that the suspension be lifted or a formal notice of cancellation issued so the company can move forward with an appeal. The safety certificates of 2 other trucking companies were recently reinstated in British Columbia. TSD Holdings and International Machine Transport had their certificates suspended after 2 separate collisions involving company trucks and infrastructure. BC's Ministry of Transportation lifted the suspensions of both companies late last month, although they still have to cough up a couple grand each in fines. The ministry told Landline these suspensions were lifted because the 2 companies had addressed all areas of noncompliance following an investigation and committed to making improvements. A truck driver is facing some serious charges following a drug bust on the Ambassador Bridge between the U.S. and Canada. U.S. Customs officials say they found close to $9 million worth of cocaine inside a commercial truck on Monday. That's after trying to pull the driver over for an inspection and him trying to take off. When they finally caught up with him, customs officials found the driver was supposed to be hauling health and beauty products, but the paperwork didn't match. A search uncovered boxes hiding inside the trailer doors, and inside those was about 630 pounds of cocaine. The driver stands accused of attempted possession with intent to distribute controlled substances. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association has issued a call to action for its New Jersey-based members over an upcoming minimum insurance hike in the Garden State. Last month, the New Jersey legislature passed legislation that would require all motor carriers in the state to have a minimum of $1.5 million in liability insurance coverage per truck starting on July 16th. In the call to action signed by OOIDA President Todd Spencer, the association said the legislature ramrodded the legislation through, adding they're investigating the legality of this expensive and unnecessary new requirement. And finally, much of the country will be shutting down Sunday evening to watch Super Bowl 58, and that includes the truck driving community. Truckstop has a new survey out dedicated to the big game, and about 60% of carriers who responded said they'll take time to watch the Kansas City Chiefs take on the San Francisco 49ers in Las Vegas. In fact, a quarter of the carriers surveyed said they plan to change their driving schedule so they can watch. As for predictions for the big game, 61% of respondents think the Chiefs will be lifting the Lombardi Trophy after time runs out on Sunday night, while 39% are putting their hopes on the Niners. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. OOIDA is seeking the names and addresses of military personnel serving overseas so we can send them care packages through Truckers for Troops. Call that information in to Nikki Johnson at 816-229-5791 or email it to troops@ooida.com. Starting Friday, Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, will be at the TA in Coachella, California. That's located at exit 146 on Interstate 10. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, I'll discuss some proposed changes to CDL requirements and what they mean with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Ashley Blackford speaks with a woman who drives a really big rig, and I'll discuss why some truckers are worried about other drivers with Marty Ellis of the Spirit of the American Trucker. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman, your leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Let us help you avoid costly downtime and repairs by visiting capitalreman.com today. Use code OOIDA10 to receive your member benefits.
Stock up on Howe's Diesel Treat, the nation's most trusted anti-gel. And to be safe from the harshest winter conditions, make sure you have Howe's Diesel Lifeline on hand, the fastest-acting gelling rescue product. Available nationwide, Howe's products are designed to keep you rolling through the toughest conditions. Visit Howe'sProducts.com.
Attention professional drivers, are you behind on your tax filings? You owe money? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. You watch the road, we'll keep an eye on the IRS. Call now. 855-976-4291.
Buckling up keeps everyone safe on the roads. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration recently issued a proposed rule that would make changes to the process for obtaining a commercial driver's license. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm your host, Mark Rettig, and I'm joined as always by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, thanks for joining me.
Good to be back.
Good to have you here. So before we get into the actual changes, I'm kind of curious, why is FMCSA proposing these changes? I mean, what do they say are their reasons?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things. Certainly, FMCSA wants to make the CDL testing administration process a little more efficient for drivers. They reference some of the waivers that were granted during COVID, and thought that could be a way to improve some of these processes. But they also do allude to some notion of a driver shortage, which, we take some opposition to. But they also come in response to petitions filed by the American Trucking Associations and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of this thing. What are the proposed changes?
Yeah, there are three big areas that FMCSA is looking to amend. One, I think, is quite more problematic than the other two, and we'll start there, which would allow commercial learners permit holders who have passed the CDL's skills test to operate CMVs without a qualified CDL holder in the passenger seat. And that really removes a requirement that is designed to ensure safety and to ensure proper training as a CDL holder, a permit holder waits to get their formal commercial driver's license. And this has been a provision that FMCSA has granted waivers on for a couple of large carriers, Prime, Werner, CRST. We saw this waiver again be administered during COVID, and we really think it, has a negative impact on comprehensive training and takes away from safety, really allowing the CDL holder who's supposed to be in that front seat giving guidance to be anywhere else in the vehicle. We kind of think that this is designed to help team operations when you have a permit holder and a CDL holder operating in tandem. So that's kind of the big one, I think, that really raises our eyebrows. Also, now going to be giving applicants the option to take a CDL skills test in a state that isn't their same as where they're domiciled. The previous provision allowed, even if you weren't a resident of that state, you could get the CDL in a state where you got the training. With the implementation now of the nationwide entry-level driver training requirements, FMCSA is kind of, going to waive those out-of-state provisions, and you can kind of take it anywhere and be granted your CDL. I think on the surface, that makes sense. I would like to have more of assurances that every state, everywhere, all these training facilities and training schools are conducting the entry-level driver training the same manner. I'm not sure we have all that review quite figured out. So that's going to be an interesting one to kind of look at and maybe get some more information from FMCSA on kind of the results that they've seen since the entry-level driver training regulations have gone into effect since coming up on 2 years now. The last one will require third-party knowledge examiners be subject to the training, certification, and record check standards currently applicable to state knowledge examiners, giving a little more flexibility to third-party testers to conduct CDL exams. Again, this was another waiver that we saw be conducted during the COVID process, and could potentially help states alleviate their burden on conducting these exams. Again, would like to see some more information on how these third-party knowledge examiners are conducting their tests. Do want to make sure that they have the same oversight that the state examiners have, and if FMCSA has been aware of any problems in some of the states that already are using the third-party knowledge examiners.
It's interesting on that point, especially. I've had a lot of truckers ask me over the years why they even allow third-party testers, why it isn't all done by the state. And I think that's a valid question.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with costs and staffing. And we've seen some of the states who don't have the necessary levels of staff to kind of, dole the examinations and testing out to third parties. Always a question when you have the third party who is doing the training to be the same entity giving the test. And those are situations I think we want to avoid as best as possible, because we think some of these outside third-party entities can kind of be a little helpful in saying, oh, well, we graduate this many drivers, and kind of say that they're doing a better job if they're the same ones conducting the test. So that can be of some concern, and want to make sure that FMCSA is not allowing that to an extent through this rulemaking. But I think FMCSA has kind of reviewed some of the information that they had gathered during COVID, and they didn't notice, I guess, a big detriment to safety. But really, a common sense one about the commercial learner's permit holder and waiving that requirement to have the CDL holder in the front seat is something I think we're really going to be pushing back on in our comments.
This sounds like something that primarily larger carriers would be interested in. Did they push for this change?
Oh, yes. They petitioned for this. We've seen them advocate for legislation to mandate some of these requirements. So I think FMCSA has probably heard from some lawmakers as well, but we kind of see FMCSA, for some reason, make some reference to this nationwide driver shortage, which we still fail to see any actual evidence of that. Certainly, that's a narrative that has been pushed by larger carriers for decades. And I think if this rule, as proposed, is finalizing, it would certainly help entry-level driver trainers get their CDLs more quickly, might remove some of the safety requirements that we think are necessary, and it's going to kind of contribute to this driver churn and driver turnover that we think is the real problem. And some of these proposals aren't going to help that in any way.
This has already been up for comment for a little bit less than a week, I think, and truckers are already getting involved in posting comments, even though they have until, I guess, early April.
Yes.
To make those comments. I want to talk about that a little bit. What overall issues are the truckers raising in regards to this?
And to clarify, it's going to be a 60-day comment period on this proposal, so through April 2nd. But we already have seen a few dozen comments come in. I think as of yesterday, there were about 65 comments, some including some from drivers. And one gentleman said that they have had their CDL for 25 years and strongly believes the proposed rule will result in an increase in accidents and incidents involving commercial motor vehicles. It's crucial that drivers who are required to take a skills test in a state where they are domiciled understands why the carriers have mentioned in this document why they support the change, but it's concerning that new drivers who are often paid poorly and paired with inexperienced or inadequate driver trainers, are going to have the problem. So I think he alludes to the fact that we still need to have driver training be conducted in a comprehensive manner, and we should not be putting in waivers or exemptions that could sacrifice that safety, and don't want to have commercial learners permit holders who get their CDL and then are often paid at lower levels than normal. So that's longstanding concern. We also heard from another driver who said they've been driving truck for 28 years. He's seen good regulations and a whole lot of bad. Feels like this is a bad one, designed to benefit the mega carriers with no regard for anything but making money. He's been on social media and can see that a lot of these social media posts proves that new drivers need all the training they can get. A lot of them have no clue how to drive a truck, but are turned loose on the road anyway by themselves, again, without the proper training, and that how they could pass a skills test doesn't necessarily teach drivers real-life situations, and says no to this regulatory change. And I think he kind of hits the nail on the head there in a lot of ways.
Let's go on to another topic here, another very important one. There's an advisory committee from a different federal agency, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they're meeting on a topic of high interest to many folks who own their own trucks, which is possible requirement for side underride guards as well as other underride guards. We most often talk about the side underride guards, Jay, but this committee is examining more than that, right?
That's correct. And this was an advisory committee established under the jurisdiction of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, who really implements and enforces implements regulations related to vehicle equipment. FMCSA has to make sure they're good on the compliance end. But again, going back to the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which contained a lot of different trucking policies, there was a provision relating to underrides that not only tasked NHTSA with undergoing some more research on underride equipments, but starting this underride advisory committee. And the committee started their work last year. It's made up from about 16 different individuals who have different background and expertise in a number of trucking sectors. Some are drivers, some represent crash victims, some from the truck and trailer manufacturing side, law enforcement as well. So it's a host of all different folks, and this will be the third meeting that was being held today. And this specific meeting is going to focus on rear underride crashes and prevention and mitigation technologies. Also going to focus on some of the regulations that NHTSA has implemented within the last couple of years as it pertains to rear underride equipment and rear underride inspections.
As I recall from earlier, OOIDA doesn't object to some strengthening of the rear underride guard, which is already required on trailers. Yeah. But in the information regarding this meeting, they mentioned prevention and mitigation technologies, as you said, would be discussed. Are there concerns with what the details of any possible change would be to these rear underride guards?
Potentially. So in the last highway bill, Congress did require NHTSA to undergo a formal rulemaking to enhance rear underride standards. They have put out that rulemaking. It formally goes into effect a little in July of this year to mirror the Canadian rear guard impacts that have rear underride standards that have been in place since 2005 or so. And 94% of the manufacturers were already in alignment with those standards. We've supported upgrading the rear underride standards, and NHTSA put out some provisions that manufacturers would have to meet and updated some federal motor vehicle safety standards. The main thing about these new standards is they've got to really meet some 35-mile-an-hour testing requirements. I think we're going to hear some proposals to even go further than that 35-mile-an-hour benchmark. Going to hear a few presentations from committee members throughout the meeting.
Okay, we've run out of time, Jay, but thank you very much for all the information.
Okay, thank you.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. Kathy DeCaro joins me now. She is a heavy equipment operator by trade, but in her spare time, she's a motivational speaker that travels and shares her story. Kathy, starting out, can you talk to me about what you do right now?
I work in northern Canada, in northern Alberta, in the oil sands. I work for Imperial Oil for the last, it's coming on 10 years, and I operate the largest mining equipment in the world. The truck, if you want a little more description, is 2.5 stories high. It carries 400 tons of dirt. It's 3,800 square feet. The tires are 14 feet high, and when the box is up, like when we dump a load, it's 5 stories high. I drive a building. It's unbelievable. And when these things are going, they go 70 miles an hour, like 70 kilometers an hour, I should say. They fully loaded. They fly down the road. Like it's quite impressive, to say the least. The grader that I operate it's the biggest one in the world. It's called a 24M. And what that does, it's actually bigger than an 18-wheeler highway tractor trailer. So when a flat deck comes in hauling pipe into the mine and they go by me in the grader, I'm actually looking down at the driver. And I get a kick out of it every single time because I'm like, oh my gosh, you lose perspective of how big things are up there because everything is big. So when you see something normal and you're like, holy smokes. And now I just started operating, I'm training on the biggest dozer in the world. It's a D11. And the blade itself, just the blade, is bigger than my 2-car garage entrance door. And I have a picture when I'm standing, I'm 5'6" with my hands fully raised. I don't even reach up to 3/4 of the blade.
Gosh, wow.
Yeah, it's impressive. And when you get in it, it's like, oh my God. You want to talk about adrenaline rush? And not just that, like I've been running this equipment for a week now or 10 days now. And the grader, what that does for my self-esteem and self-confidence is unbelievable. It's out of this world. Like you can't beat that. Like, wow.
I bet.
Look what I'm doing. You see me? And then my next thought is all those buttheads, we'll say, who told me that I was a useless waste of skin, that I would never amount to nothing, that I was too stupid to live, that I polluted the air and yada, yada, yada. Who's operating this equipment? Right? Me. Not them. Me.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's really empowering to me. So,
can you walk me through your life story and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Okay. Life wasn't always this easy. I mean, the last 10 years have been absolutely miraculous. But before I got this job in 2013, I was actually homeless and in recovery from alcohol addiction. I was a nurse for 13 years prior. That was my number one career. And in 2011, I lost everything. I lost, basically the will to live. But I had not addressed any. I had come from a lifetime of trauma and abuse. And, child sexual abuse. I've been raped many times, like at 14, at 18. I was drugged and raped by a photographer down in Miami. I was modeling in New York, and then I came back to Montreal, and I was gang raped getting out of at 3 o'clock in the morning, getting out of a cab. And I never told anyone. I didn't call the police. I was very introverted, and I grew up in fear, a lot of domestic violence. And so I always thought it was my fault, maybe I was wearing the wrong clothes or whatever, right? And then I couldn't deal with that, so I ended up trying to commit suicide 3 times back to back right after that gang rape. And luckily, by the grace of God, it didn't work. And there was always an angel to come my way to save me. But I ended up, instead of dealing with it, I moved across Canada to Jasper. I went from Montreal to Jasper, and I started my life over. And what I did was chose to pretend that it never happened. So instead I went to nursing school, launched myself into a great career, and, I was really good at nursing, and I'm taking care of everyone, but I couldn't take care of me. And that just slowly, that inner trauma, it really, all it does, it festers, right? It's like any wound, whether it's external or internal, if you don't take care of it, it's going to get infected, and it eats away at you. So it affects your decision-making skills. It affects the choices that you make, everything. So I was choosing between 2000 and 2007. I was with two men, and in very abusive situations, and it went from bad to worse. Like, I should be dead 10 times over right now. I've been strangled 3 times to the point of losing consciousness. I lived with a shovel on my deck as a reminder of what he was going to bury me with. He gave me a bodyguard. There was a person coming to the hospital following me, watching me every move. Like, I'd try to escape, and he'd find me somehow, and he'd be writing messages on my walls, "I'm coming to kill you," and just all these things. It was terrifying. He stalked me. It was very, very difficult, but yet still show up at work, even though I was in and out of women's shelters, pretending that I'm okay, right? Because I'm taking care of other people. Well, what do you think happens, right? I eventually just crashed and burned. And when I finally escaped him in 2008, I was able, that's when I started recognizing that I needed to get help. And it's a long story, but just from change doesn't happen overnight. I had to go to a women's recovery center for a year, where I had to unlearn all that trauma and relearn who Kathy really is. But the hardest part about that, about figuring out yourself after you've been brainwashed your entire life, is accepting it and recognizing that, damn, I'm awesome. I got all these qualities, and I'm not stupid, and all these things. So it was really learning to change my ways of thinking and viewing myself and appreciating me for my qualities that I have to offer. And that's easier said than done, of course, but I did a lot of work, a lot of internal work. And in saying that, I had a major relapse in 2011, and I've been doing really well, and then for whatever reason, I crashed and burned, and this time I ended up homeless. And that is when the bottom of the barrel. People say, "Oh, you hit rock bottom." No, I found the root cellar of rock bottom. And I'm in Edmonton. I've been homeless for 7 days, and I'm walking around like a zombie. And this man named Toothless Joe slaps me on the back, and he goes like, "This is the life, live it, love it." Well, when he did that, that was my moment. That was my time. And I look at him, and I look at the very dismal surroundings of the Boyle Street Co-op, and I'm like, "What did you just say?" I said, "This is not my life. I don't care what you think is okay," but I actually stomped my foot, and I said, "This is not my life." And I'd been robbed. Like, I had no identification. I literally only had the shirt on my back. And so what I did was make a decision. I didn't know where I was going, or how I was going to get there. All I knew is that I was going to do whatever it took to get away from that guy. So I turned around, I went to the hospital, I detoxed for a couple of weeks, and I went back to that women's program, and I said, "I'm not leaving here till I figure this out," right? Clearly I missed something, because trauma has a lot of layers. There's a lot of pain, and sure, you chip away at it, but the most painful ones, you're going to leave that for last, right? And so I really had to go dig deep. I had to unleash the beast in all my pains and look at it. And once I did all that, by now I was 43, and how do you change careers when all I knew was nursing? And it's not easy going midlife. I didn't know what I liked, didn't like, and so I went to a career planning workshop to find out what I wanted to be when I grew up at 43. And they said, after 3 days of personality tests and aptitude tests, they gave me my sheet back, and in big block letters on the top, it said heavy equipment operator. Well, I laughed so hard, I just about fell off my chair. I'm like, "You've got to be joking." I said, "This test, there's no way this test is mine." I said, "Come on." I said, "I'm 43. I'm a woman. I don't even like equipment. I'm not mechanically inclined. I can't even change a flat tire. Come on," right? And I said, "It's a man's job." I said, "Your test is wrong." And I give it back to the lady. Well, the lady pushes it back, puts a hand on her hip, pulls down her glasses, gives me the look, raises the eyebrow, and says, "If only you'd believe in yourself a little bit, missy, you'd see the test is right." So she sent me to Women Building Futures. Have you heard of that program? It's a nonprofit organization in Canada It affects anybody in Canada who wants to come, and it's free. It's for women wanting to get a career in the non-traditional trades. I highly recommend it. Please, if you're looking for a career change, my God, go check it out. Because all these major corporations, they sponsor programs for and women get to take these classes for free, right? And they even have apartment buildings on the second floor for women that are coming from other provinces that can, live there temporarily while they're taking a class. And it's a secured building. It's amazing what they do there. So they do things like carpentry, electrician, plumbing, journeywoman, crane operator, and then heavy equipment. Well, when this woman sent me there, it was another by the grace of God only, because had I gone 2 days earlier, I'd have missed this whole thing. But the day I went in was the day ExxonMobil, the biggest oil and gas company in the world, Imperial Oil here in Canada, happened to be there, sponsoring 16 women to take a 12-week course, a heavy equipment course.
Wow.
And there's 158 women that applied. And why would they pick me? Well, I had nothing left to lose. I mean, I had 9 months sober at the time, and I was still in that recovery home. And you want me to do a backflip? I'll do a backflip. Whatever you want. I didn't even know what a haul truck was. All I saw on that sheet was 10 days off, 10 days on. You work, you live in camp, and then you have, you're free. So I'm like, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did all their little aptitude tests, and I got picked, and I did the 12-week course. And it turns out every piece of equipment that I would get on, I was really good at it.
Wow.
Oh my God, I'm in the excavator loading a rock truck, and I'm like, holy crap, the instructor is jumping up and down. The students are like, go, Kathy, go! Go, Kathy, go! And that's when I realized that was a shift in my mind, thinking, oh my God, I can do this, And everything that the opinions of other people, it just changed. It didn't matter to me anymore. I can do this. I know I can do this. And so I got hired, and that was 10 years ago. And this job has changed my life. And I tell every woman out there that to give it a try, that honestly, operating heavy equipment is men's best kept secret. It pays well. You're in a sandbox all day. It's challenging. It does wonders for your self-esteem. And it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. And you make good money, right? So, yeah. And now that job, I'm sure it's a great job, but that just opened up the doors for me to be able to do other things. And this is what my real passion is. So right now we work 2 weeks on and get 2 weeks off. Well, sure, as great as the job is, it's still just a job. Mm-hmm. And I'm 53 now, and I don't want to leave this planet without making a difference, without using all my pain and suffering and flipping that around and creating something positive out of it. So what I do now, I've written a book, as you've seen. It's in 5 languages. It's called Dream Big. It's about my life story, but it's not just that. It's almost like a workbook. I talk about chapter 1 is fear, because that's my first emotion. Chapter 2 is loneliness, because I was very lonely and neglected. And it goes through emotions. And every chapter has 3 or 4 or 5 questions at the end for the reader to start looking at themselves and, like, what am I afraid of, or what can I change? So that led to writing a children's book. I travel the world now, and everywhere I go, I make a point of, I'll say wherever I go, so bring me to the hood. Bring me to where people are hurting. And I'll go to the women's shelters. I'll find juvenile homes. I'll go to every school that I can. I'll go to prisons. I'll create community events. And I do that for free, because those people, when you need it the most, you don't have money. Mm-hmm. And it's not about money. It's about making a difference. It's about creating a ripple effect of hope that's going to change communities, because if you look at myself, I've changed so much. And what have I done? Well, I've helped my daughter, I've helped my nieces, I've helped my nephews, I've helped my mom, I helped my sisters, and that ripple effect, and now we're all, and it just extends. So that's what I do worldwide. Yeah.
Wow. You've got an incredible story. It's just absolutely fascinating. And I'm
there's more, but general. I keep you here all day. But
That was Kathy Tuccaro. For more information, you can visit her website at kathytuccaro.com, KathyTuccaro.com. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. We'll have more after this.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy when you're truck on a CAT scale. Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Marty has just survived all those storms that have been hitting California lately, including a lot of high wind, and he's now set up the Spirit at one of the state's busier truck stops. In the meanwhile, he's hearing from other drivers who are worried about other drivers, and a lot of it sounds like it's all part of the generation gap we're all experiencing these days.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, first of all, where are you at?
I am over at the Petro in Ontario, California, over here off I-10 and Milliken Avenue.
Okay. Pretty big truck stop, pretty busy?
Yeah, it's hot and cold with the busy. It's been really, really rainy, so not a lot of people are really roaming around. So everybody seems to have webbed feet right now. But yeah, it's 520 parking spots. They got 31 showers, which is fantastic. They have an Iron Skillet restaurant, a Popeyes, and a Burger King. And so they got quite a bit here. So, yeah, I'm all set up here. And if you're anywhere in the area, please stop in.
Well, and I guess when you say how many showers they have, the big shower out there right now is outdoors. The weather's been quite an issue where you've been lately, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Boy, we had a heck of a weekend up at Wheeler Ridge. It was rainy and windy up there, but the wind was getting so bad. We had trailers blown over. You don't think a whole lot when let's say you drop your trailer to go home or drop your trailer to go get some work done at a shop or whatever you're going to do. And you don't think about things like the wind getting so strong to be able to blow one over. And that's the two that I saw were they're just dropped in the parking lot empty. And then I'd heard a couple on the ramps. So it got a little hairy, and my buddy reminded me to go ahead and put my landing gear down just to give it a little bit more stability. And we were up by the building, so we were protected a little bit. But would have liked to move my trailer to where it backed up against the wind, but I just didn't even feel comfortable just moving it at all.
Wow, that's a heck of a storm.
Yeah, and then we got an attack of the tumbleweeds there at the Petro up there. I don't know. I'm sure it was just the way the wind was funneling through the buildings and that, but it almost covered a whole lane, almost blocked the whole lane full of tumbleweeds. And I saw some videos on cars where it would some of the tumbleweeds were so big it would basically cover up the whole front of the car. And yeah, it was quite a mess. And boy, when I first walked out to see that, it's like, what the heck? Oh yeah, those are tumbleweeds. And it was just congregating all in that one area.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think of tumbleweeds as a problem out there. I think of that as something more in the Great Plains, but I guess it is.
Yeah, it is. And you don't think about it because they really don't do a lot of blowing around compared to the plains where you see them, going down the road. But out here, apparently they had a whole mess of them because they started congregating.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what drivers are talking to you about here. And I guess you've heard a lot from drivers that are worried about other drivers on the road. What exactly with other drivers has got them concerned, Marty?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just training-wise or I'm not quite sure what it is. Some people have said that one of the problems that we're having out here with newer drivers doesn't mean, I don't always mean young drivers, but newer to the industry drivers, that they treat it more like a job, so they don't have the investment that some of us older drivers that got into it and really kind of just loved the going down the road, and it just kind of got in your blood, and they don't have that connection that a lot of folks in the industry did, and some still do. Even some of the younger ones. I just talked to a young guy the other day up at Wheeler Ridge, and he was all in. Of course, his family was in trucking and that, and I think that matters. But there's so many that just treat this like a job. You clock in, you clock out. You don't have a lot of investment in it, and I think that could be part of our problem, that people don't care enough to really fine-tune what they do. This is just Marty speculating on what it could be, but it just seems like the drivers out here don't take a lot of care on what they do. They don't take pride in what they do, and it's just sad. So many guys are seeing that, and I'd say at least one a day comes in and tells me, that they're kind of getting frightened to be out here with the drivers. You look at the big pile-ups that you see, especially in the winter on, Wyoming is a prime target for those big pile-ups, because, once the visibility starts going, and if you are packing up too much, it's just dominoes. And so it gets a little scary out here. We all want to get home safe, and we're just hoping that the folks that are driving next to us are taking the time and really trying to perfect their craft.
Well, there you go. Something else that you had mentioned here, I guess you had an experience here with some of the California emissions regulations, and this involves something called PSIP. Can you explain to folks who maybe haven't experienced it yet what exactly that is?
Yeah, it's all part of the California truck check regulations that everybody had to be registered. Well, first it started by the end of December, then it went to the end of January. In the PSIP, it's called the Periodic Smoke Inspection Program. And anything newer, 2013 and newer, actually they do a test by plugging into your OBD or ECM port. And that information actually gets downloaded, sent to Sacramento. All the satellites in orbit are linking together, and it goes to Sacramento. Their computer evaluates whether you pass or you fail, and then they send you back your results to the place that you're getting it done at. And there's no, the person that's actually hooking up to your truck has no influence on whether it passes or fails. It either does or it doesn't. One thing that Ruben, the gentleman that did mine today, was that he said that more often than not, if you come in with a check engine light on, that it will fail. So you've just wasted your time and money, because you're going to have it tested again after you get whatever it is fixed, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the emissions. So if you're going to do it, I would really make sure you have nothing on there. And I was talking to Ruben's boss, Todd, and he said that they are probably going to start actually trying to check that before they start the test. And then that way maybe they can rule that out.
And I guess if it's older than that, they're actually going to check the smoke coming out of the stacks, right?
Correct. Yep. That's basically the old smoke test, and that's they'll hook it up into your pipe and run it for a little while, and that's how they test that.
Okay. Well, Marty, we just have a few seconds left here. Where are you headed to next?
Hey, I am going to be in Coachella, the TA there, it's off of I-10, exit 146 at Dillon Road. They have 205 parking spots, a Popeyes, a Taco Bell, and an Arby's, and I'll be there the 9th and the 10th. So if you're anywhere in the area, please stop in.
Okay, well, safe driving out there, Marty.
Yeah, appreciate it. Give that guy next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm. I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.